Hi there. There's another article that's come out in the Telegraph by Anouk and Sarah Knapton, which came out on the 14th. I'm recording this quite late, it's just gone half midnight, but it came out at 6:25. And it's called Letby Hospital Staff Raised Concerns about Doctor Allegedly Working on Ward When Babies Died. And the subheading is, Senior Nurse Flagged Another Medical Personnel Allegedly on Duty in Period of 7 Incidents. And it reads as follows. Staff at Lucy Letby's hospital were concerned that a doctor had been on shift at the time of many of these deaths and collapses of babies leaked documents show. In the opening statement at Letby's trial, Nick Johnson KC prosecuting said consultants had become suspicious of the neonatal nurse, i.e. Lucy Letby, after noticing incidents had, quote, one common denominator, close quote. But a leaked email between staff at the Countess of Chester Hospital shows that a senior nurse had, quote, raised concerns about a doctor who, quote, features in a number of cases of babies who collapse. Right. It goes on to say, at the Thirlwall inquiry this week, Kate Blackwell, KC, who is representing the hospital management, also said one of the reasons Lucy Letby had not been considered a risk earlier was because it, quote, appeared that there was also a doctor who'd been on shift at the time of 7 of the incidents. Leaked documents also show that Arian Powell, the neonatal unit ward manager, had worked with Dr. Stephen Breary, the unit's lead consultant, to draw up a staffing chart for the unexpected deaths and collapses, which included both nurses and doctors. But she, that's Arian Powell, was troubled to find that by the time the chart was sent to Alison Kelly, the Executive Director of Nursing and Quality Care, the column relating to doctors had been removed, leaving only the nursing staff. Staffing analysis formed the basis of suspicion against Lucy Letby, and during her trial, one of the most damning pieces of evidence presented to the jury was a chart revealing that the nurse was always on duty when the babies collapsed or died. Well, when the babies that had died or collapsed, that had been chosen as a subset of all the babies that had died and all the babies that had collapsed. The second figure of how many babies collapsed, we don't know because they weren't recorded. That list was constructed wholly by Stephen Breary. Well, he might have asked other people to help him with it, to start recording it incrementally as time went on, once he'd suspected Lucy Letby, once he'd become obsessed with her, in that sense, blaming her. But they weren't formally recorded, so we have no idea how many collapses there were across those 2 years. We only know the ones that he decided to create a record for, either completely after the event, perhaps even in 2017 he did that, by going back over the notes, or was he doing part of it as it was going along? I think he was doing some of it as it was going along, which is why they were doing this staffing chart, which is what I said in the video yesterday, that I think he was doing it in a sort of ad hoc way as it was going along, but really wasn't choosing any crashes that where Lucy Letby wasn't on duty, because he's fixed on her from June 2015, and he's just looking, he's so biased in his thinking, he's just looking for, he's not interested in deaths or crashes where she's not there. And that's the point of all this. I'll carry on reading this, there's more to say. Okay, there's a picture of Lucy there, and then it says, the table, which covered a 13-month period between June 2015 and June 2016, that's the one they showed in court, showed that each of the 38 other nurses was in attendance on just a handful of occasions when suspicious incidents occurred. Of course, it was never comparing like with like, because the other nurses, a lot of them were part-time, some of them were just temporarily there, some of them had joined much later on than Lucy. Quite a few of them weren't working nights. Lucy was working mostly nights. Lucy was working more hours than anyone else. Lucy was dealing with the most high acuity babies, the ones with the most difficulties, because she had the highest level of training there out of all the nurses that would be there to help, so she was charged with looking after the babies with the highest level of needs. So none of it was comparing like with like anyway. But the fact they'd missed the doctors out is just, it's obvious what Breary's intention was he wouldn't be looking for a doctor, would he? So Lucy Letby was dubbed, quote, a constant malevolent presence by the prosecution, which is a disgusting lie. I mean, what does constant mean? Well, only constant, and even then that has no real meaning. But he's only talking about a subset of the deaths, which is around about a third of them across that period, the full period of time. Why do you pick June to June? That's completely artificial as well. June 2015, June 2016. Why would you pick that? Why wouldn't you do the full 2 years? Because then they're not interested in finding the truth of what happened there. They want to narrow it down and create a subset of a subset, and then find the person for the purposes of blaming an individual that they already had in mind. A second chart that included doctors and consultants did not appear to show any uptick or suspicious presence for any of the medics. But none of this has any meaning because they're not looking at all the deaths. They're looking at a cherry-picked. I'm not criticising the article, it's a brilliant article. But the idea of constructing this chart's meaningless. Because, you've got this character Breary who's focusing on Lucy Letby. He's deciding unilaterally on what's unexpected and what's unexplained. But we know that there were so many other people looking into those deaths before the police ever got involved that don't consider them unexpected or unexplained. The vast majority of them, including, all of the ones in the indictment, all of the murder charges. I mean, the first person to think about is the pathologist. 6 of the 7 deaths that ended up on the indictment as murders, the pathologist said the natural causes, and the other one, there wasn't a post-mortem. The doctor encouraged the parents not to have a post-mortem in that case. Then you had the Jane Horden review, in which she found the vast bulk. She looked at 17 cases, and she found 13 of them that there was nothing unexplained or nothing unexpected with those. This is all before Evans got involved. It's all in 2016. And the 4 that she thought needed to be looked at more deeply, they were looked at by 2 other people. Dr. McPartland, who was a paediatric pathologist, paediatric consultant pathologist, Dr. McPartland, and there was no findings there of any intentional harm, no suspicious deaths for intentional harm. They couldn't always ascertain exactly what the cause of death was, but we do hear that there have been studies in which it is stated or it's found that they vary, but there's one study that says that in 7% of the cases, the deaths of neonates will be unexplained. And it's not they're unexplained because there's a murderer there, they're just unexplained. There are situations where, and there are determinations that the death is unascertained, that there's a various a range of things it could have been, or a combination of things, and they're not saying it's any one thing, or they don't know exactly the mechanism that caused it or the sequence, so they put unascertained. That again isn't a signifier to suggest that there was a murder that had taken place either. So we've gone through the Dr. Jane Horden, we've gone through Dr. McPartland, the pathologist, a second pathologist. So we've got two pathologists looking at them now. There's also an inquest for one of the babies. I think that's baby D. That doesn't find any evidence for a suspicious event in terms of deliberate harm. Then we also have what has been reported as an unnamed second neonatologist, i.e. after Dr. Jane Horden, whose findings do not marry up with Dr. Evans's later down the road when he's just looking at the notes. So and she doesn't find anything. She doesn't find any. I think it's a she. They just say an unnamed neonatologist. I believe it was referred to as she. I don't know who that is. We don't have the name, but so you got all those very high level professional people not finding any evidence of deliberate harm, and yet Evans overturns all the post-mortems, overturns the inquest, overturns the pediatric consultant pathologist, the second one, overturns Dr. Jane Horden, overturns the unnamed neonatologist. It doesn't reverses it all, because he's been set up to basically, he's the person that agrees with Breary, and he's been given the information through Breary about which ones were always deemed suspicious, and they're deemed suspicious because Breary has chosen them to be suspicious, decided they're suspicious himself because they're connected to Lucy Letby. He's not going to connect any death or any crash where she's not on duty. He's not interested in them. So it's like he's creating the idea of reality, Breary, in terms of what he decides what's unexplained and unexpected, and all these other people are saying no, there's reasons for it, and people subsequent to the trial are saying, based on the notes, based on the medical notes, well, you can see here are all the signs for sepsis here. People have gone through every case that's on the indictment saying, well, here are all the signs for sepsis here. Here are all the medical errors. Here's all the failures in medical treatment here, where liquids are not given to the baby, or antibiotics aren't given for hours and hours before huge spaces of time before they get the treatment that they need. There's the conditions that the mother had. There's all sorts of things that are not considered. It's just, you've just got Breary being suspicious. And that's why he never said to anyone en route. He never said, when he was asked he said, well, what evidence, why do you want her off the unit? And as the nurse manager said, he just said, well, we're not comfortable with her. Oh dear. Where was I here? But it has since emerged that a doctor and one other nurse had allegedly been on shift at the time of a high number of baby deaths. Well, okay. An email between Powell and Kelly from March 2016, published by the Thirlwell Inquiry this week, showed that, alongside Letby, a doctor had also been identified as a common theme among 8 baby deaths. The email, which refers to Lucy Letby as a particular nurse, said high mortality 8 as opposed to our normal 2 or 3 a year. Well, yeah, I mean, a commonality was that a particular nurse was on, this is a quote, was on duty either leading up to or during. A doctor was also identified as a common theme. However, not as many as the nurse. The whole escapade, the whole idea of trying to find out who was on duty rather than trying to find out what happened to the babies, that's at the root of all of this, isn't it? They weren't interested in trying to find out what happened to the babies in terms of their decline. They just wanted to know who was on duty for them. So there's the scapegoating operation is there, the construction of it's there from the beginning. Okay. A commonality was a particular nurse. Yeah, I read that bit. Despite reviewing these cases, there was nothing obvious that we were able to identify. Yeah, there was no commonality between them. The consultants were told when they tried to get Lucy Letby off the unit earlier on, they said, well, there's no reason. You're not saying there's anything wrong with her competence. We can't just take her out for no reason. They just said to her, to that managers, oh, we're uncomfortable with her. We don't feel comfortable. Because they didn't have anything. It's an idea fix in their minds that she's responsible for these very specific cherry-picked deaths and crashes, that the crashes aren't even recorded. So, Breary's been doing that in an ad hoc sense, incrementally throughout that period of time. And just choosing ones where he can connect Lucy Letby to them. Not looking at crashes per se, not trying to unearth all of them, because that's not in his interest, because it would move away from his obsession. His obsession is to find somebody to blame for as much of what went on there as possible. And obviously he's going to have to miss out quite a bit, because Lucy Letby isn't working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So all the time she's not working, he has to conveniently ignore all those deaths and crashes. That's why they don't appear. Leaked minutes of interviews from a grievance procedure lodged by Lucy Letby in the autumn of 2016 also reference a second nurse being on the ward at the time of many of the unexpected deaths or collapses. Again, we really need to interrogate who is it that's deciding that they're unexpected deaths and collapses. I'm not talking about the article here, I'm talking about the setup of it. It's only being determined by Breary and then Jayaram, and they're agreeing, oh, that was unexpected. But the other ones are all expected, even though at least 4 of the other deaths that weren't on the indictment were deaths in which the main cause was infection. And even though, as Dr. Scott McLachlan covered in his Law Health Tech Substacks going back well over a year now, every death on the indictment that was turned into a murder charge, every child has signs of sepsis in them, signs of infection, every single one of them. But no, Breary had to delineate between the ones that had sepsis and were explainable, the ones that had infections were explainable, and the ones where there are obviously signs of sepsis as well, and somehow he can determine that's unexplainable and unexpected, and then Evans later down the line can just agree with him, essentially. Evans is really there, not to discover anything, but to agree with what's already been decided, essentially, and determined by Breary and Jayaram. He's there to ratify it, to give it a kind of sense of it being found from an external source, but it's not. They're all on the same page. He's fully aware of what he needs to do, as is Bowen, in terms of being sent Evans's reports and not doing her own fair and impartial assessment of all the notes. She just got his reports and the notes related to the choices Evans had already made, which had already been made for him by Breary. To that, it's like a baton being handed down. The baton goes from Breary and Jayaram and co. to Evans and then passed on to Bowen, and It's meant to make you think, oh God, they all think the same, isn't that? There's got to be something in it. They all think the same, but no, they're just telling each other one's telling the other one, well, this is the case. Oh yeah, you're right. The other one's telling the other one, that's the case. Oh yeah, you're right. They're not all independently finding them from scratch, from cold. They know what the last person with the baton has thought, and what's on their mind, and what they've chosen, which deaths they've chosen, which crashes they've chosen. And it's all been done to a purpose, to focus on one person, Lucy Letby. Powell said, and going back to the article now, Powell said she mentioned the commonality and said the nurse stood out, although, this is this second nurse, although admitted that she was not as prominent as Lucy Letby. So the whole, I think I've just said this a minute ago, didn't I? The whole construction of trying to get rotors to find out who was on, that's not what they should have been doing. They should have been finding out what was going on and really looking at all that evidence for infection and saying, actually, this, as one of the other consultants, Alison Timmis, said, we're not capable of running as a level 2 unit. To acknowledge that they were drowning, actually, and they just couldn't keep up this level, and that there was very likely there was definitely a very great problem with infection there, probably in all likelihood caused by the sewage leaks, the sewage backing up. And we know that they found Pseudomonas aeruginosa there on the taps in December, and then we've got that really big spike in January 2016 of 3 deaths, none of which are ascribed to Lucy Letby in January 2016, and they just found Pseudomonas aeruginosa on the taps on 2 separate occasions in December 2015. I'll go back to the article. Experts from several British universities have questioned the shift pattern data used in the trial. Yeah, of course, what they should do, which showed Lucy Letby as the only staff member present at every death and attempted murder. Well, at every death that they chose as a subset of 19 plus deaths, which is around about, so they've chosen a subset of 7 deaths. Well, and she's working there a huge number of hours, so it's quite likely she would, and she's dealing with the highest acuity babies, so it's quite likely that she would be there for around about 7 of those deaths. That's about the right figure. That's about the right figure. And in terms of, it's put here attempted murder, but I'll rephrase it as crashes or sudden health deteriorations. There are an unknown number of those. There could have been hundreds, as depends what your definition of them are. It's Breary deciding to make a definition of them based on how many he can fit to Lucy Letby's rota. That's what it is, because they're not formally recorded. And if they're not formally recorded, they're not formally delineated or determined about what threshold, what markers you have to see to meet that descriptor of a sudden health deterioration. Not in a formal sense, because they're not recorded like that. So it's just Breary going through medical notes and collating them en route, and he's not collecting ones where Lucy Letby wasn't on duty. He's being drawn solely to the ones, and conveniently missing out all the other ones, isn't he? And then Evans simply just agrees. I just think again of which is very curious, this. In 2018, Evans has sent another batch of 28 sets of notes. And they're not deaths, obviously, because all the deaths were sent to him in 2017. So they're all going to be crashes, sudden health deteriorations, sudden collapses, apparently, allegedly unexpected collapses, but determined only by one person and his cronies, determined by Breary, essentially. So he's determining that, but he's What has he chosen? Has he chosen all 28 crashes to send to Breary, where he doesn't even know whether Lucy Letby's on duty or not? No, he knows. He knows she's on duty for all those. But for some reason, I don't know why, despite Evans choosing 25 of them, so almost 100% of them, he's saying, yeah, that's suspicious for deliberate harm. 25 out of 28 he chooses. But they never end up on the indictment. So I suspect the police get involved there and say, no, we can't overload it. It's going to weaken it if we just throw it. If you're telling, it's going to weaken it. I think there's been a meeting there, and they've said to them, yeah, we'd like to do these ones, but we'll just go with the quote unquote strongest ones, even though then none of them are strong. None of them are. None of them have any evidence that Lucy Letby has done anything wrong. Not ever. There's never been any evidence against her whatsoever at all. It's just a hideous construction. It's just by somebody with a fixed idea that somebody is responsible for this. I was going to say, this spike in deaths across these 2 years, but as Dr. Scott McLachlan has done a recent Substack, which I'm yet to read through in detail. I've just glanced at it actually, but I haven't read it all through. He maintains that he's done this. He's done an analysis in which he's concluded that the number of deaths across those 2 years wasn't actually a spike when you compare it to other neonatal units in the country, and you look at the high acuity level of the babies, you look at the staffing issues, you look at the gestation periods, and you look at the weight of the babies, etc. He's a lot of different factors to put in there to say that it wasn't a hugely abnormal spike in and of itself anyway. So you've got that extra aspect coming in. Perhaps I'll do a video about that once I've read it in detail. But please, if you haven't looked at Dr. Scott McLachlan's Substacks, he's been doing them on Lucy Letby since before the trial ended, I think, and he's certainly been involved in looking at all the aspects before the trial ended, and perhaps even before the trial started. But he went through all the babies on the indictment, all what ended up as murder charges, and found signs for sepsis in all of them. Anyway, I'll go back to the article here which is a brilliant article from the Telegraph from Sarah Anouk Curry and Sarah Knapton. I'll just carry on. Next week, the Royal Statistical Society, RSS, that's next week, is convening a meeting to explore how statisticians can collaborate better with legal teams in the wake of the Lucy Letby case after becoming aware of concerns raised by members. It doesn't matter, I just want to say, it doesn't matter what you do with statistics. If you haven't got all the deaths there, you've got this cherry-picked subset based on an arbitrary, actually, or an individual's view of what's unexpected and unexplained, as opposed to something very, very that's backed up formally in some sense. And it isn't. It's just his idea. It's just Breary's idea, and it's perverse because he'd had it in his mind that he decided that there was someone causing a problem here. Whether it was originally he thought she was making mistakes, but he couldn't prove any of that, didn't have any evidence for that, so it's got to turn into something else. They just wanted Lucy Letby off the unit, and he was trying to make a case for it. And how does he make a case for it? By just saying, when these deaths happened, you were there, but when the other deaths happened and you weren't there, well, yeah, they're all explainable. You can see how corrupted and jaundiced that is. And it flies in the face of what all the other professionals did in terms of the post-mortems, in terms of Jane Horden's report, in terms of the neonatal pathologist, in terms of the second neonatologist who looked at some of the cases that Jane Hawthorne said they need to be looked into further in terms of an inquest in one of the cases. None of all those professionals found any signs or signifiers for deliberate harm. None of them did. You've got Breary's suspicions, which just end up getting passed to Evans, who's in it for the money and in it for the glory, and he just agrees with him. He agrees with him because he's been fed that. He's been fed the story that's needed, that needs backup in a way to give the appearance it has been authorised as legitimate. So Evans said, yeah, it is serious. It is a deliberate harm here. He's delivered the goods. Evans has delivered the goods, and then Dr. Bowen later down just rubber stamps that as well, because she wants a career as a court witness and she doesn't want to work against the team, and that's essentially what it is. And the same applies to the other experts in the trial last year. They're on a team and they're going to stick with the team. There's no real independence there at all. The RSS has previously warned of a lack of knowledge in the legal profession over the interpretation of statistical evidence, and in 2022 released a report specifically setting out how best to deal with cases of medical serial killers. Well, I mean, it might be the case that you don't know that they're a serial killer. It's somebody accused of something, isn't it? The cases of alleged medical serial killers, perhaps. In a written opening statement to the Thirlwall inquiry this week, Miss Blackwell said that in the summer of 2016, following the collapses and deaths of babies at the Countess of Chester, there was little to link the nurse to the incidents other than shift data. I just keep coming back to following the collapses and deaths, but it's following a subset of the collapses and deaths. We know what we don't even know what the full set of deaths are. We don't know what the number is. I think it is 19 plus. 19 plus. We don't know what the number is. We don't know what it is. Nobody in the public realm actually has that definitive number. Nobody has it. Nobody has the definitive number for how many deaths there were. But it's certainly a subset of deaths, and it's also a subset of obviously the crashes, because they're not recorded and crashes have been determined, and what determines what a crash is has been done ad hoc en route by Breary. Anyway, I think I don't want to keep repeating that. Aside from the link between Lucy Letby's shift pattern and the deaths, nothing specific was ever articulated by Dr. Breary or Dr. Jayaram or any other consultant to identify the wrongdoing of Lucy Letby. So this is more quotes from the Thirlwall inquiry. For example, there was never any suggestion that any consultant had witnessed any event involving Lucy Letby that raised suspicion about her behaviour towards any of the babies on the unit, well, apart from baby K, but you see, that happened in February 2016, and it wasn't until 13 months later at a meeting that Jayaram said to someone else at one of the meetings at the hospital that he'd witnessed that. So he'd kept that to himself for 13 months, and a witnessed attempted murder, of the virtually red-handed thing. He kept that to himself for 13 months. And that's just unconscionable to be doing that if he believed that. But I don't think he believed it. Lucy Letby was due to be coming back. He had to up the ante. So he just brought that in as extra fire, as extra ammunition. Why else would you keep witnessing of an attempted murder to yourself for 13 months? Never said it to anyone. Whispered it to Breary, whispered it to other people, in the lunch queue, etc. The quote goes on here from this Thirlwall inquiry from Miss Blackwell. There was nothing raised about any concerning test results There was nothing raised about a failure in the care that Lucy Letby had given to any of the babies to indicate that her conduct had, or might have, contributed in any way to the deaths of the neonatal unit. Yeah, we know that because she was due to be coming back. They'd apologised to her, and the hospital was going to fund her to do an MSc, a master's course, and to take even further higher level training at a level 3 unit. That's how much that's how much they did not find, that she was due to be coming back, and they were going to train her up to do even more. That's how much trust that they had in her, because there was zero evidence, zero evidence, and there never has been any evidence apart from what this ghastly melange of people, group of people that construct it out of nothing, out of malice and suspicion and revenge and narcissistic rage in the case of the consultants, and the pathology, the ghastly pathology of Evans, who's a very, very dangerous man. Have I read that bit? Yeah. The undefined concerns of the consultants, exactly, undefined. It was just all whispers. It was a whisper campaign. That's why the junior doctors said awful things about Lucy Letby. They were just poisoning the well against her all the way through. The undefined concerns of the consultants were not shared by nursing staff. Indeed, the NNU manager, Arian Lloyd Powell, was firmly of the view that Lucy Letby was a good and competent nurse, and no one's ever shown any evidence to the contrary. Not to this day. Not to this day. No one's shown any actual evidence of her harming any babies to this day. Not a single scrap of it, actually. Since Lucy Letby's conviction, several statisticians have come forward to question the way data was used. However, the prosecution has argued the case was not solely based on statistical evidence. Yeah, they keep moving the goalpost, don't they? With each pillar that's knocked down, they say, oh, well, we didn't base it all on that. Eventually, all the pillars will be down. Well, they'll say, well, we didn't base it all on what? Nothing. No, we didn't base it on anything. And that's the truth. As each pillar turns to dust and the roof's about to come down, you still got one pillar left. You knock out one after the other, as is happening. They'll keep saying, as you're getting down to one pillar, they'll keep saying, oh, we didn't base it on that. We didn't base it on that. You got one pillar left. They knock that out. And what are they going to say then? Well, we didn't base it on what? Nothing. You based it on nothing. Peter Skelton, KC, who is representing the parents of children A, B, I, L, M, N and Q, has addressed the ongoing speculation that Lucy Letby may be the victim of a miscarriage of justice at the Thirlwall inquiry this week. He says, this Peter Skelton, Lucy Letby was not convicted on the basis of questionable statistics, but because the factual and expert medical evidence demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that she had harmed children at the hospital. He said, absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Not in any way whatsoever. Not in any way whatsoever. Dr. Jane Hutton, a professor of statistics at the University of Warwick, has previously raised concerns about how the staffing chart was compiled. Quote, she says, Dr. Jane Hutton, all staff, cleaning and technical as well as healthcare, should be on the list, she said. But I want to inject something here. I mean, if you just did that, if you just do that and you don't include all the other babies, and you don't include all the other crashes, for which then you need to decide what's the descriptor for a crash, what is a crash, what does it mean? Then you're going to find, how many you're going to find across those 2 years. You might find scores and scores, maybe you'll find well over 100. They've all got to be on there. So I think I said in the last video, you've got to go through every single note of every baby across those 2 years to look for anything which is similar to what is later called a crash and cherry-picked to be deemed a crash by, or an unexpected crash, shall we say, or an unexplained one by Breary. And you need to compare them and say, well, you said this was unexplained. Here's something very similar happening. How come you didn't choose that one to send to Evans? How come that didn't end up as something that you need to get to the bottom of? Oh, was it because Lucy Letby wasn't on duty? Yeah, I think it was. You have to have all the babies, all the deaths on there. You have to have every single crash. So therefore you have to work out a set of criteria for what a crash is. And because they're not recorded, we don't actually know what that criteria is. No one's ever described it, other than it's been formed and decided by Breary what it is, and also decided that such crashes are unexpected, such individual ones, whereas other ones, not so much, because Lucy Letby isn't on duty for them. She goes on to say, Dr. Jane Hutton, all staff clean. Yeah, I read that, didn't I? So all staff cleaning and technical as well as healthcare should be on the list, she said. By removing doctors, it could prejudice future investigations. It also effectively assumed harm was caused by a nurse. Yeah, of course it does. Absolutely it does. That's the intention, that there's no way they're going to consider it was a doctor that did it, which shows how compromised it was from the very beginning, how biased it was from the very beginning. And not only that, it's not that it shows how compromised and biased it was in terms of just choosing a subset of the people working there. It's to do that at all, rather than to say, is it about the people working there? i.e. they're looking for a perpetrator from the beginning, rather than a cause, or a series of causes, or a multiplicity of causes for the actual deaths and crashes. They're looking for the perpetrator rather than the cause. Or they're looking for a perpetrator at the complete expense of looking for a cause or a series of causes. And as Dr. McLachlan has gone through, and many other people have since mentioned it as well, the cause that links all these deaths is the signs are there for sepsis, for infection. But they're not interested in that, because that's a story about the unit, that's a story about the trust, that's a story about the NHS, that's a story about the doctors, that's a story about how it was managed, how it failed the babies and their parents. They're not interested in that. They want perpetrators, they don't want causes, because the causes reflect back on them. So the idea of any reworking, maybe they've just got to find it. Maybe I can understand the rationale here, that you've got to undo the point, you've got to undo the toxicity that they've thrown at the jury by saying it's about a chart and who's on duty. But if you get stuck in that, mentality, we just need a better chart, then I think that's missing the point. Because the point isn't about the rota charts. The point isn't about who's on duty, because nobody committed a crime here. The point is about a failing unit. The point is about a series of babies that became infected because of the pathogens on that unit. That's what it's about, and that's not to do with. You're not going to get anywhere near that by looking at a chart about who's on duty, are you? The pathogens don't care who's on duty. Infections don't care who's on duty. So just to really keep flogging the chart or trying to find a better one, I understand the reason to do it, because you've got to undermine the lie of what they've set up. But to think that's an end in itself, it isn't. It can't be, because it's going the wrong direction, and in a sense you don't want to kind of replicate their mistake by saying, oh look, we can show that this person's not likely to be guilty because the chart says so. No, but the chart's not going to tell you anything about what happened to those babies. Not going to tell you. What's going to happen is to look at the change in their health status, what procedures were missed out, how long they went without liquids, how long they went without antibiotics, how many mistaken procedures there were in terms of intubations and other procedures that some of the junior staff didn't have the skills for, and there weren't the consultants weren't there to ask them or to supervise. The senior cover, I think it's called, wasn't there. The fact there was only two consultant ward rounds a week instead of there should have been 2 a day. That's what gets you near it. That's what gets you near it. Looking into, the fact there was Pseudomonas aeruginosa on those taps, that's what gets you near it. You don't get anywhere near any truth through doing better charts. Although I understand, I'm caveating that with the fact that you've got to undo the poison that's been done. You've got to undo the lies that have been constructed and that have unfortunately wielded a lot of power over people's imaginations, including the juries, but also many people in the country who just saw that chart and go, oh, well, that's a slam dunk then, because. But I think it's a mistake to focus on the chart and try to get a better version of it. I'm not saying don't do it at all, but it's not the route to the truth, is it? The route to the truth is to say, let's investigate this. And it's going to be quite difficult to do, but let's investigate this, not assuming there's been any crimes. It's been investigated as though they've assumed they shouldn't have assumed that they were crimes. That's the problem. They've assumed that there were crimes. The police, as soon as the police involved, well, there were crimes. Where we're here, we're the police. Well, what do we deal with? Crimes. We don't deal with infections. We deal with crimes. So we're going to see crimes. If you're a hammer, everything you look at is a nail that you want to attack with your hammer. It's a nail. It looks like a nail. So they see nails. They don't see infection. They're not interested in staffing ratios. They're not interested in the fact those junior doctors didn't have the skills that they should have had. They're not interested in the intricacies of the NHS or whether the unit was underperforming. And they don't know, they don't care about it. They're interested in crime, so they'll construct a crime. And obviously Brewery they're up for that there, because they'd gone so far down that road of wanting Lucy Letby out at any cost and all costs that they went nuclear on it. And then the most dangerous element is when Evans appears on the scene, and he is almost like a demon from hell, almost, actually, that is summoned. I mean, he inserts himself. It's almost like he is satanic, and he inserts himself into this to deliver this wicked, evil injustice and cover-up. It's almost like he's destined to insert his evil nature into this, to make this happen. Because without him, and without those police, but if it had been someone else, there might have been a chance that they would have said, well, there's no evidence here of any crimes. It needed the Evans. It needed this demonic character. That might sound extreme to some people, but that's the way I look at him. I see him as evil. I see him as a force for evil, not just in this case, in previous cases as well, where he had a child taken away from a mother. Said that the mother had Munchausen's by proxy because the child wasn't really ill, but found later on down the line that the child did have a very serious illness. But he had that child removed from the mother, saying that the mother had Munchausen's by proxy. And he took over that child's life for a certain period of time and drove a wedge between the mother and child. This is the kind of person we're talking about. There's no conscience there. He's capable of anything. And he inserted himself in this, and he wanted glory. He's a frustrated politician. Never really got anywhere with that. This was meant to be his kind of swan song, his glory years, his glory, his heroism. But it's his dark, vile nature has ensured this injustice. Not just him, but he was a necessary cog in the machine, in this horrific machine. I think I'm nearly at the end now. Oh yeah, so it's Dr. Jane Hutton, the professor of statistics. She's also talking about the chart should also include basic information on gestational age, birth weight, multiple pregnancy, reason for premature birth at a minimum. Yeah, all that's fine and good. The last little bit here says management ought to have gone to Public Health England Health Security Agency, which has the relevant experience. Yeah, okay, if you're going to do a chart, yeah, do it comprehensively, but you've got to do it with all the babies, and you've got to decide what a crash is, because they're not formally recorded. And then so how are you going to ascertain how many of them there were? You need a set of criteria for them. You can't rely on just Breary's unilateral choice of what an unexpected crash is, can you? You need to have something that other people can agree on. So all that has to be done as well. But as I said, just to reiterate, making the most perfect chart is not going to tell you anything about what happened to those babies, because you're starting with a false premise that it's a crime. You're still in the mindset of trying to state whether this is a crime or not, and what should have happened. Well, there was one inquest for one of the babies. There should have been an inquest for all of them. Then that's what should have happened then. But we're dealing with the culture of the NHS here. They didn't want to acknowledge how badly the unit was run. Didn't want to acknowledge how dangerous and chaotic it was. It's not me that's saying it's chaotic. It's not other commentators that weren't there not saying it. It's Alison Timmis, a consultant, in the thick of it, in the latter part, in December 2015, is saying to the chief executive, Tony Chambers, that it's chaotic. It's chaotic and it's unsafe. She's saying it's unsafe. A consultant working there, and that the cost of not being listened to, that they're overwhelmed, the staff are overwhelmed, they just can't keep up, and they're not able to run at the level that they should. It's dangerous, chaotic, unsafe. And her premonition is, or her prognosis is, that children are going to die, and that's exactly what they did do. And that's not even touching the fact of the obvious issues with infection there, which are very likely caused by that long-term problem with the plumbing and the sewage coming up, backing up into the sinks and over the floor and dripping in the crawl space above on a regular basis, So there we are. I think I'll leave it there. This is my second go at the video. The first one it didn't go so well, but I get a bit sidetracked. I could write a lot of stuff down, but I don't know. I think I find doing it on the hoof a bit better. It's a really good article. Fantastic work by Anouk Curry and Sarah Knapton. They're making a very good team here, and hopefully there'll be more from them in due course. Hope it makes sense, some of the things I've said. It's my opinion, it's my supposition. I know some people, I read the comments. I do read all the comments, pretty much all of them. Sometimes I don't read all of them, but I read the majority of them. And some, of course people don't agree, and that's up to them. It's a free world. This is my opinion based on things I've read and things I've listened to, and but there's more to come. There's more to come out, and we're gonna see how things move forward. There's so much has come out already that the Thirlwall inquiry can't go on blithely as though that's not happening. None of it's happened. So there's more to be revealed, I'm sure. An area of focus for me has always been how have they constructed it, and what signs can we infer? What signs can we recognise that it's utterly underhand how they've created this? And there are a great many of those that I've gone over many times in the videos. Well, I've mentioned them, the ones that I believe I can see over the last 13 months of doing videos about this. So I can't believe it's well over a year since I did the first one. It was quite a tentative video because I just thought, this doesn't feel right at all, and it's been quite a journey, and I've met, not face to face, but online, some amazing people with all kinds of backgrounds that are so dedicated and utterly sincere and caring about this, what is obviously a wicked and terrible miscarriage of justice for Lucy and her family, and a terrible treatment of the parents of those babies, because they've been lied to. They've been lied to by the police and the NHS and the whole criminal justice system, and that's a wicked thing to do. As well, of course it is. The truth has to come out. It has to come out. It's not going to be allowed to rest this. No one's going to just go, oh, we're going to give up on this. Oh, well, we tried. Oh, far from it. Far from it. Each day, there are more people asking questions, more people wanting to do podcasts, videos, writing articles like this. Obviously, there are sources giving out information, and they'll be giving out more information as time goes on. As I said, with the analogy of the pillars are being knocked down one by one, and soon there'll be nothing holding up the roof of that prosecution. It will crash to the ground. And the system, and I'll keep calling it the system, the establishment essentially, they will not be able to resist the calls for a retrial. And I think personally, as I've said before, it should just quash the verdicts, quash them, quash the convictions as being completely unsafe. I wouldn't want to see a retrial. But then you have to get to the bottom of what did happen to those babies across those 2 years. What happened to each of them. And you don't do that, just to reiterate, you don't do that through looking at staff rotas. It's not to do with that. You do when you're looking for somebody to blame for doing something either unintentionally or intentionally wrong, then you look at the rotas. There is a lot of wrongdoing there, and it's about negligence at a trust level, at the NHS level, and at the medical level, the medical failings by the doctors and the consultants. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for listening. Hope it hasn't been too unfocused to ramble, but it's a really good article. I'll leave the link below. There's no paywall, so you can read it. And let's hope there are many more articles like this, with the sources giving up more very valuable information. Thank you and good night. Bye-bye.